Captain Underpants and the Wrath of the Wicked Wedgie Woman, the fifth epic novel by Dave Pelkey. Let's go right into it. Hi everybody, before you read this story, there's some stuff you need to know. Read this comic book to fill yourself in on the story so far. But remember, this info is top secret, so don't let it fall into the wrong hands. The trouble with Captain Underpants, now it can be told. An informational comic by George and Harold. Once upon a time, there were two cool kids named George and Harold. We kicked butt, me too. But they had a mean principal named Mr. Krupp. Come over here, Bubs. No way. One time, George and Harold hypnotized Mr. Krupp with the 3D hypno ring. You'll obey our command. Okay, zap. George and Harold made him think he was a great superhero named Captain Underpants. Look, a Captain Underpants. Ha ha ha. It was funny at first, but then Mr. Krupp jumped out the window. Hey, where do you think you're going? To fight crime, okay? George and Harold had to chase after him so he wouldn't get killed and hurt. Come over here, bub. No way. They had many adventures with lots of inappropriate humor. Dappers and toilets and poop, oh my. Then one day, Mr. Krupp accidentally drank Superpower juice. Glub glub. Now he got superpowers. He can fly too. Tra-la-la! Two things you have to be careful about is water and finger snap. For if you snap your fingers by Mr. Krupp, snap, he turns into Captain Underpants. Tra-la-la! And if you pour water on Captain Underpants' head, he turns back into Mr. Krupp. Blah blah blah. So, if you see Mr. Krupp, don't snap your fingers or you'll be sorry. And if you see Captain Underpants, don't pour no water on his head or you'll be sorrier. Remember, this is top secret, so don't tell anybody. Chapter 1, George and Harold. This is George Beard and Harold Hutchins. George is the kid on the left with the tie and the flat top. Harold is the one on the right with the t-shirt and the bad haircut. Remember that now. We have to sign, people, please wear your socks on the gym floor. Like most schools, the teachers try to emphasize the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic with that. But George and Harold's teacher, Miss Ribble, was more concerned with enforcing what she called the 3 S's. Sit down, shut your piles, and stop driving me crazy. Well, this was unfortunate for all of her students. It was especially bad for George and Harold because they were very imaginative boys. You see, imagination was not really encouraged at George and Harold's school. In fact, it was discouraged. Imagination would only get you one way to get to the principal's office. This was sad for George and Harold because they didn't get straight A's. They weren't sports stars. They could barely walk down the hallway without getting into trouble. Now they changed the sign to, please go pee-pee on your socks for warmth. See what I mean? But George and Harold had one thing that most of the other folks at Jerome Morris Elementary School didn't have. Imagination. They were full of it. And one day they would use that imagination to save the entire human race from being overthrown by a crazy woman with even crazier superpowers. But before I can tell you that story, I have to tell you this story. And as you know, the author is telling that story. Chapter 2, Miss Ribble's Big News. One fine day, George and Harold's homeroom teacher, Miss Ribble, entered the classroom looking a bit meaner than usual. All right, settle down, shouted Miss Ribble. I have some bad news. I'm retiring. Hooray, cried the children. Not today, snapped Miss Ribble. At the end of the school year. Aw, man, moaned the children. But the staff is throwing a retirement party for me today, said Miss Ribble. Hooray, cried the children. During recess, said Miss Ribble. Aw, man, moaned the children. There'll be lots of free ice cream, said Miss Ribble. Hooray, cried the children. My favorite flavor, chunky tofu, said Miss Ribble. Aw man, moaned the children. But first, said Miss Ribble, it's time for something fun. Hooray, cried the children. You all get to make happy retirement cards for me, said Miss Ribble. Aw man, moaned the children. Chapter 3. When you care enough to send the very best. Miss Ribble went around the classroom handing out envelopes, sheets of construction paper, and butterfly stencils to all of the children. Then she wrote a poem on the chalkboard. Roses are red, violets are blue, you are retiring, and we'll miss you. Sign your name here. Alright, take out your crayons, said Miss Ribble harshly. I want you to use stencils to make a yellow butterfly on the front of your cards. When you're done, copy this poem on the inside. Can we make up our own poems? Asked Melvin neatly. No, snapped Miss Ribble. He could still make a better poem because, yeah, he's smart. I don't know. Do you have to use stencils? Asked Aaron Mancini. Yes, yelled Miss Ribble. Can we make our butterflies purple? Asked Stephanie Yarkoff. No, screamed Miss Ribble. Butterflies are yellow. Everyone knows that. While the rest of the class worked on their cards, George and Howard had a better idea. Let's make Miss Ribble a comic book instead, said George. Yeah, said Harold. You can make it all about her. It'll be cool. So that's just what they did. Chapter 4. Captain Underpants and the Wrath of the Wicked Wedgie Woman by George Beard and Harold Hutchins. Once upon a time, there was a really mean teacher named Miss Ribble who was very mean. She gave us lots of homework and yelled at us all the time. Read 250 pages for a test. Aw man. One time at Christmas vacation, she gave everybody 41 book reports. Ho ho ho! Wake up! It's time to open up your presents. I can't. I have to do my homework. After Christmas, everybody turned in a big pile of book reports. Ha ha ha! Then something terrible happened. Help! Miss Ribble was buried in a mountain of book reports. She's really most sincerely dead. No, she's not. We can rebuild her. We can make her better than she was. Faster, stronger, eviler. When Miss Ribble got out of the hospital, she had bionic powers. Oh, take over the road, ha ha ha. So she made an evil costume. Her bionic beehive hairdo opened up to reveal an evil Wedgie Ribble claw. Haha, nobody can stop me now. Ouchies. Help! Witchy Woman is in the teacher's lounge. She just drank all the coffee and now she's giving the gym teacher a killer wedgie. Oh, the horror. She better make a fresh spot. This looks like a job for Captain Underpants. Crash. What's the problem, bub? Help! It's Wedgie Woman. So Captain Underpants got into a big fight with Wedgie Woman. He tried to give him a wedgie, but Captain Underpants was faster than a speeding waistband, more powerful than boxer shorts, and able to leap tall buildings without getting a wedgie. Tra-la-la! Wrath. The Wedgie Woman went to the store to buy some spray Stretch. Stretch is the enemy of underwear. Wedgie Woman sprayed. Gotcha! Hey! Oh no! My underpants is all stiff and uncomfortable. Captain Underpants tried to push the buttons on his utility waistband, but they were broke. He was powerless. I'm doomed. Wedgie Woman gave Captain Underpants a big wedgie, then she hung him from a pole. Rats, nobody can stop me now. Soon some kids came by. Captain Underpants needs our help. They threw him a rope. Catch. Then they pulled really hard and let go. Boing, splash. The kids poured fabric softener in the pool. Suddenly the scratch got washed away. Hooray! My underpants is soft and cottony once again. Hallelujah! Thanks, Kiss. No problem, Mo. Soon Captain Underpants found Wedgie woman. Remember me? Getting a robo claw flew up a steady time and looped around. The robo claw reached for underwear, but it grabbed the wrong pair. Ow, ow, owie! It's off to jail with you. Aw man. Tra-la-la! Hooray! The end. Notice, any similarities to actual persons living or dead is very, very unfortunate. Treehouse Comics I can see. Chapter 5. The Wrath of Miss Ribble. When Miss Ribble read the comic book that George and Harold had made, she was furious. Boys, she yelled, you've just earned yourselves a one-way ticket to the principal's office. But all we did was use our imagination, said George. We're not allowed to do that in this school, snapped Miss Ribble. Didn't you read chapter 1? George and Harold gathered their things and soon they were sitting in the office outside Mr. Krupp's door. Mr. Krupp is on the phone, said the school security. Miss Anthro, why don't you boys make yourself useful and copy the Friday memo for me? And pass them out to all the classrooms for me while I go to lunch. Oh man, said George. Quit your whining, Buster, shouted Miss Anthro. I want this done by the time I get back or you'll both be sorry. Miss Anthro grabbed her coat and stomped out the door. George and Harold looked at the Friday memo. It was a weekly newsletter that told all about the events of the upcoming week. Let's see this. Ribble Elementary School Friday memo. Monday, band practice canceled. No practice today due to asbestos removal in gymnasium. Tuesday, School Spirit Day. Show your school spirit by wearing the school colors gray and dark gray. Wednesday, cheerleader tryouts today. Anyone wishing to join the cheerleading squad must do all of the following. Number 1, meet in the gym after school. Number 2, have the school cheer memorized. Number 3, don't forget to wear gym shoes. Thursday, football practice rescheduled. All football players report to soccer field for early practice today only. Pep rally at 3:15 in the gym. Friday, yearbook photos taken today. Please dress appropriately. Anyone caught making funny faces will receive a detention. Let's go back to reading. Hey, said George, Miss Anthro's computer is still on. You'll want to make a few changes to this newsletter? Why not, said Harold. So George and Harold typed up their own version of the Ribble Elementary School Friday memo, and they ran off copies for all the students in the school. Let's see what they had wrote. They used their imaginations. It'll be great. Friday memo, next week's news. Monday, school canceled. No classes today due to lack of interest. Tuesday, National Wear Your Pajamas to School and Pick Your Nose Day. Show you care by wearing your pajamas to school and picking your nose. Wednesday, cheerleader tryouts today. Anyone wishing to join the cheerleading squad must do all of the following. Number 1, eat 10 whole cloves of raw garlic. Number 2, draw a mustache on your face with permanent markers. Number 3, tape a 3-day-old egg salad sandwich to your head. Thursday, football practice rescheduled. All football players report to teacher's lounge for early practice. Food fight at 12:15 in the lunchroom. Friday, yearbook photos taken today. Please wear bumblebee costumes. Also, whoever makes the funniest face wins a free pizza party for their class. Chapter 6, the retirement card. George and Harold were gathering their new and improved Friday memo copies into small piles when Principal Krupp came into the office. Hey, Mr. Krupp shouted. What are you two troublemakers doing in here? Miss Anthro told us to pass the Friday memo out to all the classrooms, said George innocently. Well, make it snappy, yelled Principal Krupp. Suddenly, Harold got a sneaky idea. He took out the blank piece of construction paper that Miss Ribble had given him earlier. Hey, Mr. Krupp, said Harold. Will you sign this retirement card for our teacher? Mr. Krupp grabbed the card from Harold and eyed it suspiciously. This card is blank, Mr. Krupp growled. I know, said Harold. Our class is going to decorate it later. We wanted you to be the first to sign it. Well, alright then, said Mr. Krupp. He opened the card and quickly scribbled, "Signed Mr. Krupp," on the inside. Then he stormed out of the office. What are you gonna do with that? Asked George. You'll see, said Harold, smiling. Chapter 7. Verse Psychology. George and Harold passed out the Friday memo and made it back to their classroom just in time for Miss Ribble's retirement party. George quickly changed the letters around the sign outside the door, while Harold wrote a special greeting on Mr. Krupp's card and stuffed it into the envelope. Have a blissfully grand retirement, Miss Ribble. Miss Ribble really needs a breast mint. They changed it to that. Hey, Bubs, shouted Mr. Krupp as he stormed down the hall. What do you kids think you're doing? We're going to Miss Ribble's retirement party, said George. That's what you think, smart guy, said Mr. Krupp. Miss Ribble showed me that comic book you boys made about her. And now I catch you changing the letters around and another sign. You boys aren't going to any party. You're going straight to the detention room. Well, fine, said Harold. And we're not gonna give Miss Ribble the card our class made for her. Mr. Krupp quickly swiped the card out of the Harold's hand. Aha! He shouted. I'm going to make sure she gets this card. I'm going to give it to her myself. Aw, man, said Harold. Swipe, he takes the card. George and Harold walked down the hallway toward the detention room. Wow, said George. That was pretty cool how you got Mr. Krupp to deliver that phony card for you. Yep, said Harold. I used reverse psychology on him. Gotta try that sometime, said George. By the way, what did you write on the card? You'll see, said Harold, smiling. Chapter 8. The Party. Miss Ribble's retirement party started off bad and just got worse. First, Miss Ribble forced the class to sing a corny song to her. By the time she was done yelling at the boys for singing off-key, the chunky tofu ice cream was melted. Everybody had to eat it anyway. Then the children handed in their happy retirement cards. Miss Ribble ripped several of the cards up because some of the children had mistakenly drawn polka dots on their butterflies. One unfortunate boy had also drawn a happy smiling sunshine on his card, and he had to stand it in the corner. Finally, Mr. Krupp stepped forward and handed Miss Ribble the card he had snatched from Harold's hand. I went to a lot of trouble to get this for you, Mr. Krupp said gallantly. Miss Ribble tore the envelope and read the card out loud. You're one hot mama, said Miss Ribble, with a shocked look on her face. You, cried the children. She opened the card and read the inside. Will you marry me? Signed, Mr. Krupp. You, cried the children. The teachers gasped. Then the room grew silent. Miss Ribble glared over at Mr. Krupp, who had turned bright red and began sweating profusely. He tried to speak. He tried to tell her it was all a big mistake. He tried to say something, but all that come out was ba-ba-boo-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. Congratulations, said Mr. Meaner as he patted Mr. Krupp's sweaty, shivering shoulder. Yes, congratulations, yelled Miss Antelope. This will be the best wedding in the whole road. We can have it here after school, a week from Saturday. I'll plan everything. The lovebirds don't have to worry about a thing. Great, the dance, said Miss Ribble, still looking quite angry and confused. Said Mr. Krupp. Chapter 9. Freaky Weeky. The following week at Ron Forest Elementary School was definitely one of the weirdest ones they had in a while. For example, none of the kids showed up for school on Monday, but Mr. Krupp didn't seem to notice. Hey, where is everybody today? Asked Mr. Rector. Said Mr. Krupp. On Tuesday, everybody did show up in their pajamas. Why is everybody picking their nose? Asked Miss Fitch. Said Mr. Krupp. On Wednesday, for some strange reason, the whole school smelled like garlic and rotten egg salad sandwiches, especially some of the girls. Boys, the Miss cried. The styles today are getting bizarre, said Mr. Krupp. Thursday was, without a doubt, a complete and total disaster. There's a food fight in the lunchroom, shouted Mr. Rushworthy, and the football team is destroying the teacher's lounge. Mr. Krupp. Now, nobody was sure what happened on Friday. Apparently, there was a mix-up with the dress code and the yearbook's pictures. Our school pictures are ruined, if I'm mistaken. Mr. Krupp. Yes, it was a freaky week, all right. But the big wedding was only a day away, and things are about to get really freaky. Chapter 10, The Big Wedding. It was Saturday, the day of the big wedding. Miss Antgrove, true to her word, had taken care of everything. In just 1 week, she had transformed the gymnasium into a beautiful wedding hall, complete with food, decorations, and even a 6-foot-tall ice sculpture. All of the children were dressed in their finest clothes. Harold even wore a tie. Man, said George, I cannot believe we have to go to school on Saturday. I know, said Harold. Why couldn't they have had this wedding during Monday's math test? Soon the organist began to play. The rabbi walked down the aisle. He approached George and Harold and stopped to talk to the boys. I've heard a lot about you two, said Rabbi. I don't want you boys playing any of your tricks today. Silly Rabbi, said George. Tricks are for kids. Believe it or not, George and Harold had not planned any prank for the big wedding. They had no joy buzzers up their sleeves, no squirting flowers in their labels, no whoopee cushions on their chairs. They were on their best behavior. Nothing could go wrong today. No time at all. Miss Ribble and Mr. Krupp were standing in front of the rabbi, looking quite ill. The rabbi asked Mr. Krupp if he would take Miss Ribble to be his lawfully wedded wife. Said Mr. Krupp. Then the rabbi asked Miss Ribble if she would take Mr. Krupp to her husband. There was a long silence. Everyone leaned forward. Miss Ribble looked nervously from side to side. Suddenly, she shouted at the top of her lungs, "No!" Mrs. Ribble turned to Mr. Krupp and jabbed her finger into his shoulder. "Listen, Krupp," he said, "I can't marry you." "Hooray! That's too bad," said Mr. Krupp. "You're a mean, cruel, and vicious man," said Miss Ribble, "and I respect that. It's just what?" asked Mr. Krupp. "It's just your nose," said Miss Ribble. "You've got the most ridiculous nose. I've never seen anything quite like it. I just couldn't marry somebody with such a silly nose." Mr. Krupp got angry. "Well, fine," he shouted. "I didn't want to marry you anyway. It was all George and Harold's fault. They tricked us." Suddenly, everybody in the gymnasium turned and looked at George and Harold. "Time to go," said George. Chapter 11, The Refreshments. As George and Harold turned to leave the gymnasium, they heard the loud thumps of cleated wedding boots clumping down the aisle toward them. "I'm gonna grind those kids into head cheese," said Miss Ribble as she lunged for the two boys. George and Harold screamed and ran to the back of the room near the refreshments. There they hid behind two large wooden pillars. Miss Ribble approached the pillars and grasped them with her mighty hands. With a horrible roar, she pushed the right pillar over and landed on the back of the luncheon table, causing the front of the table to flip high into the air. Unfortunately, it sent all of the food flying into the crowd. The creamy candy carrots clobbered the kindergarteners. The fatty fried fish fritters flipped onto the first graders. The sweet and sour spaghetti squash splattered the second graders. Greentails and Dalwick timbleberries studded the third graders. 500 frosty, fudgy fruitcakes flocked the fourth graders, and 55 fistful as fancy French fried frankfurters flattened the fifth graders. By now you're probably worried that the wedding guests had nothing to drink with their lovely appetizers. Well, rest assured, the second pillar took care of that. Miss Ribble pushed the left pillar into the fresh fruit display, causing it to topple over, sending 2 large watermelons crashing down into 2 oversized punch bowls. This created 2 enormous splashes of tropical fruit-flavored punch, which rained down upon the wedding guests like a torrential downpour. Now, no wedding is complete without a wedding cake, and when Miss Ribble kicked the ice sculpture over, the resulting crash sent the beautiful double-decker cake flipping high into the air, right over Miss Ribble's head. Gotcha now, screamed Miss Ribble as she grabbed George and Harold by their neckties. Splat! George and Harold undid their ties and ran out of the gymnasium screaming. Man, cried Harold, I thought we were dead meat. That's when we got it from going to school on Saturday, said George. Chapter 12, Ribble's Revenge. As you might imagine, George and Harold were nervous about going back to class on Monday. But for some strange reason, Miss Ribble seemed happy to see them. Good morning, boys, Miss Ribble chirped with a giant evil, toothy grin. Come here, I've got something to show you. Uh-oh, said George. She's smiling. That can't be a good sign. George and Harold cautiously approached Miss Ribble's desk. I took the liberty of adjusting your grades last weekend, said Miss Ribble. You'll be happy to know that all your grades have just dropped from B's and C's to F's and G's. Oh no, George gasped. Not F and G's. Hey, what's a G? It's the only grade lower down an F, said Miss Ribble. There's no such grade as G, said Harold. There is now, Bub, said Miss Ribble. Looks like you're both going to flunk the 4th grade. Won't that be fun? No way, said George. That's not fair. Life ain't fair, said Miss Ribble. Get used to it. You want to hear something? I didn't make of it, but life is fair because it's unfair to everybody. So, if something unfair happens to you, don't be so ashamed of yourself. Don't be so mad or something. Because it's unfair to everyone. Let's continue. Chapter 13. A Bad Idea. That afternoon, George and Harold sat in their treehouse feeling sorry for themselves. She can't get away with that, said George. We've got to tell somebody about this. Nobody's going to believe us, said Harold. Well, there is one thing we can do, said George. He opened the drawer to their drawing table and searched through the pennies, paper clips, dried spitballs, and rubber bands. Then he pulled out a dusty plastic ring with some gum stuck on it. It was the 3D hypno ring. Oh no, said Harold. I thought we threw that thing away. We just threw the instructions away, said George. But I remember how it works. Do you remember what happened the last time you used it? Asked Harold. Yeah, said George. But we were fooling around last time. This time you'll be serious. We won't make any mistakes. All we have to do is hypnotize her into changing our grades back to normal. That's all. I don't know, said Harold. Sounds like a bad idea to me. Worse than flunking the 4th grade? Asked George. Good point, said Harold. Chapter 14. The Return of the 3D Hypno Ring. The next day at school, George and Harold stayed behind while the rest of the class went outside for recess. What are you punks still doing here? Asked Miss Ribble. Said George nervously. We wanted to show you this really cool ring. Yeah, said Harold. If you look closely at it, you can see a funny picture. Well, what is this? Said Miss Ribble as she stared at the ring intently. I have to move it back and forth, said George, or you won't be able to see the picture. Miss Ribble's eyes followed the ring back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You're getting sleepy, said George. Very sleepy, said Harold. Miss Ribble yawned. Her eyes began to droop. I'm so sleepy, she said, as she slowly closed her eyes. In a moment, said George, I'll snap my fingers, and you will be hypnotized. So sleepy, mumbled Miss Ribble. Snap! Now, said Harold, you must listen very... Chapter 14 and a half. We interrupt this chapter to bring you this important message. Hello, this is Chim Chim Doppelbrace, this is Ingrid Ashley reporting for Eyewitness News. We have a late-breaking story about a tragic incident that is now occurring in the Pacific Northwest. Police have just closed down the Little Wise Guy Novelty Company in Walla Walla, Washington. Apparently, this company has been selling very dangerous hypno rings. We now take you live via satellite to our reporter Booger Stinker Squirt, Larry Zarro with the latest developments. Thanks, Chim Chim, said Larry. Reporters have poured in from all across the country concerning children who have used the 3D hypno ring on their friends and family with disastrous results. The most shocking revelation is the effect that the ring seemed to have on women. Apparently, whenever the ring is used to hypnotize a woman, a mental blunder occurs, causing the woman to do the opposite of what she is being hypnotized to do. Doctors don't know why the ring causes women to have an opposite reaction, but they're very concerned. If you or someone you love has purchased a 3D hypno ring, throw it away at once. And whatever you do, please don't use it on a woman. Chapter 14 and 3/4. We now return to our regularly scheduled chapter, already in progress. And when we snap our fingers, George continued, you will change our grades back to normal. Yeah, said Harold, and you won't do anything crazy like turn into Wedgie woman. And you won't try to destroy Captain Underpants, said George, or take over the road either. Yeah, right, said Harold. We just change our grades. And that's it. George and Harold looked nervously at each other. Well, said George, I think that covers everything. Yep, said Harold. We shouldn't have any more problems from Miss Ribble. So the boys snapped their fingers. Snap. Chapter 15. Bad Hair Night. That night, Harold and George camped out in George's treehouse. I have to drive your mother to work early tomorrow morning, said George's dad. So you boys are responsible for getting yourselves to school on time. Okay, Pop, said George. We'll be there bright and early, Mr. Beer, said Harold. It had been a tough day for George and Harold, and now it was time to relax. George rolled out the sleeping bags while Harold unpacked a box of chocolate donuts, 4 cans of orange cream soda, and a big bowl of barbecue potato chips. Believe it or not, there was even a cool Japanese monster movie playing on TV. You know, said George, life doesn't get any better than this. Yep, said Harold, but do you think the hypno ring actually worked on Miss Ribble? She looked a little weird when she came out of her trance. She was probably just sleepy, said George. Teachers have very stressful jobs, you know. I wonder why, said Harold. After the movie, George and Harold brushed the crumbs out of their sleeping bags and got ready for bed. We'll sleep in our school clothes tonight, said George. That way we won't have to wake up early to get dressed. Good idea, said Harold. George turned out the light and soon the two boys were drifting off to sleep. After a few minutes, Harold sat up quickly and looked around. Hey, he whispered, what's that noise? Didn't hear anything, said George. They listened closely. Shh, said Harold. There it is again. George heard it this time. He reached over and opened the treehouse door a crack. All they could hear was the sound of crickets chirping in the night. George opened the door wider and the boys peeked down. Ugh! roared an evil-looking woman dressed in tight purple veneer and a mangy-looking fake fur boa. George and Harold screamed in horror. The snarling woman climbed from the ladder into the treehouse. George and Harold recognized her immediately in the moonlight. Miss Ribble, George gasped. What a lovely outfit you have on. Who's Miss Ribble? The angry lady growled. My name is Wedgie Woman. George and Harold looked at each other and swallowed hard. I understand that you boys have information about Captain Underpants, said Wedgie Woman. What makes you say that? Asked Harold. I've read your comic books, said the evil villain. You boys know his strengths, his weakness, and I'll bet you even know his secret identity. No way, said George. Captain Underpants isn't real. He's just a cartoon. You'll see about that, Wedgie Woman scoffed. Wedgie Woman reached out and grasped George and Harold's arm. What do we do now? Cried Harold. We can take her earlier, said George. It's not like she has superpowers or anything. Chapter 16. Who's afraid of the big bad beehive? The struggle that followed may someday be remembered as the single most unlucky thing that ever happened in the history of the road. First, George pulled his arm out of Wedgie Woman's grasp, and Harold squirmed away too. When Wedgie Woman lunged after them, George crouched down into a ball behind Wedgie Woman's feet. All it took was a simple nudge from Harold to send the ferocious female toppling over backward. Right into the wall, clunk! The bookshelf above Wedgie Woman's head shook violently, causing a strange-looking juice carton. Green juice poured out of the carton directly into the tiny woven beehive of hair atop Wedgie Woman's head. No, yelled Harold as he grabbed the juice carton. This is the juice we got from that spaceship back in our third book. You mean the one with the annoying long title? Asked George. Yeah, said Harold. This is extra strength superpower juice, and a whole bunch of it got in her hair. Don't worry, said George. None of it got in her mouth. What's the worst thing that could happen? Her hairstyle would have superpowers. Well, said Harold, I guess you're right. That is pretty stupid, even for one of our stories. It's pretty funny though, said George. Suddenly, two coiled arms of twisting hair shot out of Wedgie Woman's head and grabbed George and Harold by the back of their underwear, yanking them high into the air. You know, said George, this isn't as funny as I thought it would be. Sorry for this. Chapter 17, all tied up. Wedgie Woman brought George and Harold back to her house and tied the boys tightly into two chairs. Tell me the secret identity of Captain Underpants, screamed Wedgie Woman. No way, said George. Said Wedgie Woman. You want to do this the hard way? No problem. Wedgie Woman's hair began uncoiling itself. Several twisted locks of hair stretched out into the living room and started taking apart the television, the computer, and the Digmaster. Other tangled coils reached into the kitchen and began dismantling the dishwasher, the toaster oven, and the Bronco food dehydrator. What are you doing? Asked Harold. If you want to make robots, said Wedgie Woman, you gotta break a few small appliances. George and Harold watched impatiently while Wedgie Woman's hair assembled thousands of assorted screws, bolts, wires, gears, candle tubes, and computer chips. Soon, two small robots began taking shape. I didn't know Miss Ribble was smart enough to make robots, said Harold. Me neither, said George. I think some of that extra strength superpower juice must have soaked into her brain. The next morning, Wedgie Woman completed her robots, which she named Robo George and the Horror 2000. You know, said Harold, something about these robots seemed a little familiar. Yeah, said George, they kinda look like us, only not as dashingly handsome. Wedgie Woman opened the robot's chest plate and inserted a can of spray straps into each one. Then she sealed the chest plate, patted each robot on the head, and sent them both off to school. Captain Underpants didn't stand a chance now, Wedgie Woman laughed. Wait a minute, said Harold. How are those two robots going to stop Captain Underpants? All they have to do is wait and listen, said Wedgie Woman. As soon as they hear the words "Trilla-la," it'll all be over. Chapter 18, Robo George and the Horror 2000. Attention, boys and girls, said Mr. Krupp to the fourth graders. Your teacher, Miss Ribble, didn't come to school today. Hooray, shouted the children. Settle down, Mr. Krupp shouted. You're still going to have all your classes. Aw, man, moaned the children. But you're going to have a substitute teacher, said Mr. Krupp. Hooray, shouted the children. And that's going to be me, said Mr. Krupp. Aw, man, moaned the children. The whole day was pretty much like a normal day, except for one thing. Mr. Krupp couldn't understand why George and Harold were so well behaved. They didn't make funny noises during science class, they didn't stick crayons up their noses during art class, and they didn't draw comic books during math class. In fact, they even walked past the sign without changing the letters around. Mr. Krupp was stunned. "Alright, you two," Mr. Krupp shouted. "I stop being so good or you're gonna be in big trouble." What's today's lunch in here? Today's lunch genetically modified meat-flavored beef with extra bulbous silk. But Ribble, George, and the Haro 2000 kept right on behaving. The only time they did something even remotely wrong was during recess. Everybody was playing kickball, and when it was the Haro 2000's turn to kick the ball, he kicked it pretty darn hard, and boing! The kickball tore right through the top of page 101 and out of the other side as it sailed toward the outer regions of Earth's atmosphere. Soon it broke free of our planet's gravitational pull and began heading straight toward the planet Uranus. "Aha!" shouted Mr. Krupp as he pulled out the official school rulebook and read Roof Chart 411 out loud. "It is against the rules to kick school property into outer space. You're in trouble now, bub." The Haro 2000 ignored Mr. Krupp and began running around the bases. "Hey, I'm talking to you, Hutchins," Mr. Krupp shouted. He pointed at the Haro 2000 and snapped his fingers. Snap. Suddenly, Mr. Krupp began to change. A silly looking smile stretched across his face, and he stood before the fourth graders, looking quite heroic. Quickly, he turned and ran back into the school. Chapter 19, Trella-Lunatics. Several minutes later, Captain Underpants flew out of Mr. Krupp's office window. As the hero zipped across the sky, he let out a triumphant tra-la-la. When Ribble, George, and the Haro 2000 heard the words tra-la-la, they immediately stopped playing kickball. Suddenly, their arms began to extend and their legs stretched toward the sky. Strange secret compartments in their ever-growing torsos opened up, revealing giant rocket boosters and the latest in advanced aviation technology. Steel panels on their faces and bodies expanded wildly as their complex structures swelled to highly improbable proportions. Suddenly, flames shot out of their retro thrusters as their bodies rose into the air. In no time at all, two gigantic robots were flying in hot pursuit of the amazing Captain Underpants. George and Harvard are in big trouble now, said Melvin sneezily as he read through Sharp 7734 of Mr. Krupp's official school rulebook out loud. It is against the rules for students to transform into giant flying robots during afternoon recess. The real George and Harold, however, had more on their minds at that moment than a few broken rules. They watched the action unfold on a big screen television that Wedgie Woman's horrible hair had built by combining the square parts of a fish tank and an electric toothbrush. The colossal robots surrounded Captain Underpants, but surprisingly, the waistband warrior looked happy to see them. "George, Harold," said Captain Underpants, "my, how you boys have grown. And I didn't know you could fly. That's great. Now you help me fight for truth, justice, and all that is pre-shrunken quantity." But the gigantic robots didn't respond. Instead, they hovered close to Captain Underpants after steel chest plates opened up. Suddenly, two extendable robotic arms reached out and began showering Captain Underpants with liquid spray stretch. What are you doing?" cried Captain Underpants. "That's spray stretch. It's the only thing in the world that can take away any superpowers." The waistband warrior screamed in horror as he began falling through the sky. Ribble George quickly swooped down, grabbed the helpless hero, and hung him by his waistband on a tall pole high above the city streets. Chapter 20. You asked for it. Hooray! Cried Wedgie Woman as she turned off her new TV. My plan worked. Now it's time to take over the road. But what about us? Asked Harold. Don't worry, said Wedgie Woman. I've got a big surprise for you two. She took a heavy battle axe and tied it up with a rope. Then she leaned the axe toward George and Harold and lit a candle under the rope. When the flame burns through the rope, said Wedgie Woman, all your problems will be over. Get the point? Not really, said George. Don't worry, laughed Wedgie Woman. You will soon enough. Wedgie Woman laughed a horrible laugh. Then she dashed out the door to take on the road. George and Harold watched as the flame began burning through the rope. They cringed as the impending doom of the axe blade came closer and closer. Well, said George, it looks like this is the end. Maybe not, said Harold. Maybe the blade will fall and slice through our ropes and not harm us at all. I doubt it, said George. This kind of thing only happens in really lame adventure stories. Suddenly, the blade fell and sliced through the ropes, not harming George and Harold at all. The two boys looked at each other and decided it was best not to comment on the situation. Chapter 21. The Ruthless Revenge of the Wicked Wedgie Woman. Wedgie Woman headed to the center of town to meet up with Ribble, George, and Harold 2000. Well done, my precious robots, said Wedgie Woman affectionately. What's all this then? Said a policeman who had just arrived on the scene. Nothing, officer, said Wedgie Woman. Just the beginning of my total world domination. Oh, okay, said the cop. Hey, wait a minute. But before the police officer could voice his objections, a twisted dreadlock from Wedgie Woman's head shot out and grabbed the cop by the back of his underwear. The colossal Harold 2000 lifted the officer and hung him from a stop sign. Owie wowie, cried the cop. Two more police officers headed to the scene, but they all met with the same terrible fate as the first policeman. Before long, every cop in the city was hanging from a street sign. Call the National Guard, screamed the chief of police. Call the army, call the Marines, call a hairstylist. Soon, the armed forces arrived with a whole fleet of tanks and helicopters, but everybody was afraid to shoot. Wedgie Woman was just too quick. Giant robots stomped around the city as Wedgie Woman barked out her commands. Everybody on Earth must obey me, cried the wicked Wedgie Woman. If anybody refuses, they'll get the wedge. If anybody tries to stop me, it's Wedgie time. Bow down to me. Welcome to Wedgieville. Soon, George and Harold arrived at the scene. They hid in some bushes and watched the terror unfold. I've got to rescue Captain Underpants, whispered George. He's the only one who can save the road. But how? Whispered Harold. He's got no superpowers left. Sure he does, said George. Stretch doesn't really take away superpowers. He just thinks it does. He's got to change his mind. I sure hope he can, said Harold. Chapter 22. They can. George and Harold ran to the pool where the heartbroken hero was hanging. Hey, Captain Underpants, cried Harold. You've got to come down from there and save the city. Can't, whined the waistband warrior. I need fabric softener. No, you don't need fabric softener, said George sternly. That was just a dumb joke in one of our comics. But you don't understand, said Captain Underpants. Stretch is the enemy of underwear. Only fabric softener can save me. Raz, said Harold in frustration. Hey, George, are there any stores around here? Yeah, said George. A new one just opened down on Oak Street. Then let's go buy some fabric softener, said Harold. It'll be easier than trying to reason with the guy. How's that going to help? Asked George. It's all in his mind, Harold explained. If he believes that fabric softener will save him, then it probably will. I think it's called the placenta extract. So George and Harold ran to Oak Street. What's the name of the store? Asked Harold. I can't remember, said George. I think it's called everything except, oh man, said George. You're doomed, cried Harold. Listen, said George. You've got to make another comic book. How? And now? Asked Harold. They went to the shop, everything except fabric softener, the store for all your non-fabric softening needs. It's only our hope, said George. The fate of the entire planet is in our hands. So the two boys brought some paper and a few pencils and got down to work. 22 minutes later, George and Harold had created an all-new Captain Underpants adventure. They ran back to the pool where Captain Underpants was hanging and tossed their new comic up to him. There was no time to be reading comics, the Captain Underpants. Just read it, bub, said Harold. Yeah, said George. You might learn something. Chapter 23, The Origin of Captain Underpants, the true untold story, by George Beard and Harvard Hutchins. A far time ago, in a galaxy long, long away, there was a planet called Underpants World. Underpants World was a peaceful planet where everybody wore only underwear. Haha, I can see your underwear. Hey, what are you doing under there? Underwear. Haha, you said underwear. Haha. Everybody liked wearing underwear so much that they never got into fights and they didn't have no wars either. It was cool. But one day, all of that happiness ended abruptly. The Wedgie warlords had arrived. Hey boss, let's spray the planet with trash. Okay, I hate those guys. The good people of Underpants Road got scared, so they ran to where their leader, Big Daddy Long Johns. Help us, Big Daddy Long Johns. Okay, don't worry, I have a magic announcement that will protect us from Stretch. Yippee! But he accidentally dropped the magic amulet. Oopsies! It fell into the mouth of his newer son, little baby Underpants. Gulp. Oh no, he swallowed it. We are doomed. But just the Wedgie warlords, Grace, Stretch, and Captain Underpants Road. Big Daddy Long Johns and his lovely wife, Princess Pantyhose, knew that their planet was a goner. So they decided to save their baby. Burp. So they stretched his underwear real far. Stretch. Then they let go and shot him into space. Whee! Be good! Don't pick your nose. Little baby Underpants sailed through space as his home planet Little baby Underpants sailed through space as his home planets crumbled behind him. Aw man, some little baby Underpants fell to Earth. Welcome to Earth. Little baby got adopted by some old guys. My, he's so cute. Let's adopt him. They named him Captain after their favorite cereal. Hi, Captain. Hi. But as the years went by, Captain became very sad. For some strange reason, he never ever seemed to fit in. Why do I feel so different? Then one night, he had a weird dream. He saw his old planet and his other parents. Hi, son. How's it going? Son, you aren't like other people. You are a superhero guy. Also, you have a magical amulet inside you. It will protect you from the evils of Stretch. All you have to do is say these words. I summon the power of Underpants Road, and you will overcome the powers of Stretch. Okay, the captain awoke and became a cool and superhero guy. And he never had to be scared of Stretch no more, even if Wedgie Woman's robot sprayed him with it. Because all he had to do was say, I summon the power of Underpants Road, and he would be free. Well, what are you waiting for? Just say the words. Chapter 24. The placenta effect. Wow, said Captain Underpants. I didn't realize that I had superpower within me all along to overcome the evils of Stretch. Say the words, shouted George and Harold. Okay, said Captain Underpants. But I think it's a great metaphor for. Just say the words, yelled George and Harold. Alright, said Captain Underpants. But all I'm saying is that. Just say the words, screamed George and Harold. No, said Captain Underpants. Kids have no feel for dramatic tension. Then he cleared his throat and spoke in a powerful voice. I summon the power of Underpants Road. Suddenly, Captain Underpants rose triumphantly into the air. He was free at last. When the gigantic robot saw that Captain Underpants had escaped, The Haro 2000 launched its rocket arms at our hero. Captain Underpants grabbed the giant Ribble arms and swung them around toward his foes. These might come in handy, said the wasteland warrior. Chapter 25, the incredibly graphic, violent chapter in Flipporama. Warning, the following chapter contains scenes that are so violent and naughty you aren't allowed to view them. You're not kidding. Now read the following chapter. Don't even look at it. Just skip ahead to page 156 and don't ask any questions. Plus, P.S. Don't breathe on it either. Let's still read it. Hey, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be looking at this chapter. It's too violent and naughty. Now bend over yourself and give yourself 11 spankings and a timeout before proceeding to the next page. Maybe then you'll learn to follow instructions. Okay, still gonna do this. Hey, it's not violent. Completely same as the book I read before. Like, first epic novel, second epic novel, third epic novel. Super Smashy Cyber Slam. Chapter 26, Reverse Psychology 2. The giant robots were defeated, but the battle was not over yet. Haro ran back to their treehouse to grab the 3D hypno ring, while George ran back to everything except fabric softener for some more supplies. Soon George returned to the center of town carrying a big cardboard box filled with spray cans. What are you doing with that? Asked Haro, who has just arrived with the 3D hypno ring. I'm taking this extra strength spray scratch someplace where Wedgie woman won't be able to find it. George shouted rather loudly. Extra strength spray scratch? Cried the wicked Wedgie woman. That's just what I need. But Wending Hair lashed out at George, stopping him dead in his tracks. The 9 twisting rays each grabbed a can from the box and began spraying them at Captain Underpants. A huge cloud of mist filled the air, covering everything in sight and making these 2 pages incredibly easy to draw. When the cloud finally lifted, all of Wedgie Woman's hair was gone. In fact, all of everybody's hair was gone. See, George explained, there was no spray scratch in this box. This was just a cleverly disguised carton of hair remover. I used reverse psychology on her. Screamed Haro as he clutched his bald head. My mom's gonna lay hard-boiled eggs when she sees me. Relax, said George. Our hair will grow back. That's easy for you to say, said Haro. Your hair was only half an inch long. Chapter 27, Reverse Psychology. Whoa, Wedgie Woman, said Captain Underpants. It's off to jail with you. Wait a second, said Haro. You'll take care of Wedgie Woman. Go back to school and put some clothes on. And wash your face. Yeah, bub, said George. Use plenty of water. We've got work to do. Okay, said Captain Underpants. So Captain Underpants did as he was told, and in no time at all, he was back to his cruppy old self. It was now time to transform Wedgie Woman back to her old self, too. Some slight modifications. Okay, said Haro. Remember when we hypnotized Miss Ribble and she did the opposite of everything we wanted her to do? Yeah, said George. Well, if you want to set things right, Haro continued, you've got to hypnotize her into doing the opposite of what we want. I'm way ahead of you, said George. So the 2 boys once again hypnotized their teacher. Only this time, they used reverse psychology on her. From now on, said George, you will always be known as Wedgie Woman. You will keep all your superpowers too, said Haro. You will not go back to teaching 4th grade, said George. You will remember everything that happened in the last 2 weeks, said Haro. You will not change your grades back to normal, said George. You will not become the nicest teacher in the history of Geronimo Elementary School, said Harold. And you will not bake fresh chocolate chip cookies for a class every day, said George. George, said Harold sternly, stop goofing around. I can't help it, said George. You should never hypnotize anybody when you're hungry. Okay, said Harold. Let's just snap our fingers and pray that this works. Snap. Chapter 28. To make a long story short, it did. Chapter 29. Grade 11 through hypnosis. The next day, Miss Ribble entered the classroom looking a whole lot friendlier than usual. Boys and girls, said Miss Ribble, I have some good news for you. Hooray, cried the children. It's time for English class, said Miss Ribble. Aw, man, moaned the children. Today, said Miss Ribble, I've asked George and Harold to lead the class. Hooray, cried the children. They're going to teach us about creative writing, said Miss Ribble. Aw, man, moaned the children. They're showing us how to make our own comic books, said Miss Ribble. Hooray, cried the children. While they're doing that, said Miss Ribble, I'm going to pass out something for you all to work on. Aw, man, moaned the children. Homemade chocolate chip cookies, said Miss Ribble. Hooray, cried the children. This is awesome, said Harold. But do you think it was right for us to change our personality like we did? Sure, why not, said George. She's happier. She'll probably live longer. You're right, said Harold. I guess hypnosis is a pretty cool thing sometimes. Then again, as we all know, sometimes it isn't. Were these cookies hard to make? No, dear, they were a snap. Hey, Miss Ribble is a wig while this wig goes. Snap! Oh no, screamed Harold. Here we go again, screamed George. Tra-la-la! Thank you for watching this video. I'm almost at 1,000 subscribers. I need 39 more. It was so difficult. Plus 39. It seems so easy. Please consider subscribing. It will help me a lot make much better videos. And I hope I can see you in the 6th novel. And if you haven't saw the earlier audiobook videos, try consider watching it for fill out yourself some information about the Captain Underpants series. I hope I can see you really soon. Take care. Bye.